Yemi Bakayoko, oh yo, Samina Mina, Edward Mende, Samina Mina Sam Sadakte. He comes from Senegal.
And I think going out and get Saul was the top transfer of the market for Chelsea.
Chesney could have been in the shower smoking a cigarette like he was at Arsenal, and we still would not have scored.
My rants have been fueled by Scott. Don't get it twisted.
Big Rom. Man, fuck you.
In Roman we trust, right?
You and me are going to have a battle royale about Jorginho and diving.
The flag stays down!
Welcome to the Flag Gave It Their All podcast. Missing Matt again tonight, but you got myself, Andy, my co-host, Parker. Parks, how we doing?
Yeah, the boys just gave it their all. They fought. They just gave it their all. They gave it everything they had. We continue to lose, but they gave it all they had. So I didn't give this weekend all I had, but it was still a weekend. It was still good. Still good to vibe out and watch the team lose, celebrate Easter. You know, it's Groundhog's Day. I'll say that at least 3 more times on this pod. It's been Groundhog's Day. It's just same shit, different day, right? So it's all vibes now, man. It's just all. It's this generation's pod of everyone still gets a trophy, everyone still gets a ribbon. We showed up. Hey, it's good enough, right?
Yeah, no, it is, and I can sense your mocking of my vibes.
I'm not mocking vibes. Vibes are all we have, man. That is all we have left is vibes. So I'm not mocking them. It's just still been tough to get there for me.
All right, boys. Well, executive decision here. We're cutting the honor whoever wore the number of the episode. A, it's hard to find a catchy name for that. And B, we're getting into some repeats here and getting into the weeds, and it's not serving any purpose. So Matt's suggestion was to do something that offers up a little bit of personality for every one of us. So let the listener kind of get to know all of us on a weekly basis. So this week, started debuting this week, we're going to do a top 5 list before we get into the pod. Each of us are going to drop our top 5 of a given topic. And Matt, do you want to intro this week's topic?
Yeah. So I figure for this segment, we'll just kind of go one at a time, just kind of round table, round robin, however you want to phrase it. And we will do our guilty pleasure songs that we just always kind of vibe to. Songs that, you might not think about, songs that give a little bit of, kind of understand us, kind of how we are individually and stuff like that. Like the stuff that, you turn on the radio and you just crank up the volume and you just vibe to. So we'll just kind of give it that little bit of touch.
All right. Well, since you are now a guest host on this pod, we'll let you start it out. So Matt, what is your number 5?
So my first pick in this would be Careless Whispers by George Michael.
Okay.
Banger of a song.
You were right, or before we started recording this, we're not going to be able to touch any of these. So Parker, how about you? Number 5.
Something that our audience may have heard of. I'm going to go with Like a G6 by the Cataracts. That is a song that is near and dear to the pod's heart. The Cataracts were a group that we kind of found when they were coming up and followed them through their very short stint of fame. And Like a G6.
And Dev. Don't forget Dev.
And dev is hot.com, right? So we always kind of got into that song. So that's number 5 on my list. How about you, Collins?
I'm gonna go. This is dad mode kicking in. Aiden's big on the movie Sing. And in that Taron Egerton, I don't know, sings a cover of an Elton John song, I'm Still Standing. I don't like the original. I don't like the Elton John version, but I like the version from Sing. So that's my number 5. All right, let's bring it back around. Matt, number 4.
I'm gonna go with Lou Bega with Mambo number 5.
Well done. That is a banger of a song. I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas is my number 4.
I like that.
Is that the one where they say dirty bit?
I believe so. I believe so, Collins.
I enjoyed this segment already. All right, number 4 for me, Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. Our good buddy Will choreographed his own dance to that in college. And it has stuck with me ever since. So yeah, my Miley, number 4.
Oh God, that's such a good song. All right, so for number 3, I'm gonna go with, oh boy, I'm gonna go with Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. It's just a staple. I don't care who you are, you always love that song.
The meme song of a generation.
Yes.
Can I say I'd never heard that song before? It's Always Sunny.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm almost impressed.
I'm
my number
extremely disappointed.
my number 3 is TikTok by Kesha.
all right, I'm gonna have to cross one of my 7 Kesha songs off the list here.
Yep. Stabbing him right in the heart.
All right, number 3 for me, and I'm learning a lot about myself with this list here already. Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen.
You son of a bitch.
Banger, absolute banger.
Oh, damn you. Oh,
And the reason Matt's disappointed, he made up a rule that we can't repeat any songs here, so he's having to dig for another one.
yep. Oh, that hurts. All right. So my number 2 would be by Hadaway, called What Is Love. You may know it as a song from Night at the Roxbury.
Baby Don't
Counts
Hurt Me.
already belting it right now, so yeah.
That's the Twitch exclusive right there, as you get to see
Yep.
Collins lip sync it, right? We record this podcast on Sunday, boys, but I got to get down for Friday. Rebecca Black, baby.
Yes,
The one-hit wonder.
She just dropped a new album. I saw it on Twitter the other day.
What? Congrats. Cheers.
You would know something like that.
Oh man, I've got 5 left on my list to pick from, and I don't know where to go with number 2.
We can throw out some honorable mentions. It's okay.
All right, cool. As long as we're doing that, then I'm gonna go. Let's see. I have to. Ghosts and Stuff by Deadmau5. I can't leave Deadmau5 off this list. That I think I was in like the 99.3rd percentile on Spotify of like I'm like one of his top listeners on Spotify. So I can't leave him off of a guilty pleasure list.
All right. My number 1, Lionel Richie, All Night Long. If you haven't heard it, listen to it. You want to talk about vibes? That's vibes all day. Anytime
I,
in the car or out in the garage, like I'll go out in the garage and just kind of just two-step to it. It's so good
you keep two-stepping, man. I love that.
all day.
Uh, I was when I was thinking about this, I had to come up with something from the boy band era because it kind of was the formidable time of listening to music on the radio. And I had to go with my favorite. It's not the collective favorite, but it's Dirty Pop by NSYNC. Or I think it's just called Pop, but it is my all-time number one favorite NSYNC song. NSYNC was my favorite boy band back in the 90s. So I'm rocking out with Dirty Pop.
Damn, I didn't even think about that era. That's right. I'm confident in mine. My number one, Die Young by Kesha. Banger. Absolute banger. Created a TikTok trend. It's great. I love it. I will listen to that song every time it's on. Any honorable mentions from you guys?
I have two. Man in Motion by John Parr. It was the soundtrack title to St. Elmo's Fire. And then I had another one that was really good. Faded by Soul Decision. A one-hit wonder of a boy band. Banger.
Yeah, I had two quick ones. If I wanted to go Deadmau5, I was going I Remember, just because that's pure vibes. It's just pure vibes in the car for me. And then the song that I absolutely belt out, it's not a guilty pleasure because I think it's a good song, like sort of objectively, but it's I Write Sins Not Tragedy by Panic at the Disco. That's like one of my number one belter songs of just sing every word to it.
All right, and mine, just too quick. Gangster's Paradise by Coolio. 100%. And then one that recently I just added to my liked songs on Spotify, and it screwed up my whole fucking algorithm. Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo.
Nice.
Very nice. All right, boys, I got a hop.
Yeah, Matt and I, Parker, you were in a meeting earlier in the week when they appointed Frank. I maybe overstepped my bounds a little bit and mocked Matt for doubting that Frank was going to be the interim manager, copying screenshots and whatnot. So I might have provoked the whole situation, but turned into a giant 45-minute argument in which my whole argument was that I was vibing. So yeah, that's that. I mean, that's the week it's been, really.
Can you believe that earlier this week we played Liverpool and we didn't have Frank as our manager, or as of Tuesday? Doesn't that feel like he's been our manager for now 3 weeks?
If I'm being this is not for the pod or an act or anything like that. I completely forgot we played Liverpool this week. I didn't prep for this pod at all, expecting to talk about Liverpool because it didn't happen. I don't believe it.
It happened. It was 0-0. It got rescheduled from when the Queen passed away. I think it was match week 4 or match week 5, something like that. So it was a game that wasn't supposed to be on the schedule, but sure enough it was, and it allowed us to get our third manager in, and then shortly followed out by our fourth manager of the season. So I think we're just trying to go for high scores at this point. Just how many can we get in?
Yeah, so I think the first toast of the night needs to go to, let's see, we covered Potter getting sacked. Bruno Saltor, who hasn't officially been sacked yet, still listed on the club website as assistant coach, but was not in the box on the weekend against Wolves. So cheers to leaving as our least losingest manager of all time, Bruno Saltor.
Cheers, Bruno.
No, we don't talk about Bruno.
I was just gonna say, I feel like that's gonna have to be the meme, is we don't talk about Bruno anymore. It never happened. But we'll get into that later.
Is this whole season a meme? It's a great throw or toss up by you there. It has to be, right?
I feel like it's a collection of them at least. It's been a joke. It's been laughable. It's been to the point that like we have to just sort of laugh and make fun of it because you can't take it seriously. You can't honestly sit down and watch and like cheer for your team to win because it's been like it's just been laughable. It's been bad and we just don't know what we're doing and we try different things and nothing seems to work. And I don't know, man. It seems like everyone else knows how to play football except for us. And I'm just like, I tuned into a couple other matches. Like I tuned into the Man City match for a half hour after our match on Saturday. And the City they look so much more composed and they look so much more poised to know where to go with things. And it just seems to work out for them. And then on top of it, they just score like fuck you goals for fun because Erling Haaland just decides to like do overhead kicks for fun when he can. And they don't even need to do that. Like the goals that they scored, weren't overly impressive up until that point, but they managed to like yawningly put in 4. And it's just kind of funny to see how a team that knows what they're doing playing against a mid-table club just absolutely dominates them.
Yeah, dude, I know we've said it multiple times on this pod, but just ready for the season to be done. And we joke about just vibing the rest of the season, but that's really going to be my attitude for the rest of the year. This is exactly, I mean, drink right here for the baseball reference. But the White Sox, who are my team in baseball, went out and spent all kinds of money a couple of years ago, brought in Tony La Russa, the second winningest manager of all time in baseball, and went out and didn't even make the playoffs. And it was just a shit show from beginning to end. There were injuries and there was issues in the clubhouse. And it's like, that's what I'm getting out of this. And at some point you stop. I think your mind for your own mental health stops mentally investing into each individual minute of each individual game. And that's where I'm at right now. I watched this Wolves game this weekend, and honestly, I laughed when Wolves scored. Like Matt was here. Matt's not on the pod, but if Matt were here, he could attest to that. He was chilling watching the game. But really, like there wasn't anything. It's not entertaining anymore. Like you said, it's Groundhog's Day.
It is. And like, I was watching that Wolves game and it felt just like the Villa game. And there's that like, soccer's so momentum driven and you can just feel when a goal's happening. Like you can just feel that buildup and that pressure that gets put on Chelsea. And Chelsea can withstand like 3 minutes of pressure, fine. They can withstand 5 minutes of pressure, fine. But at like the 15-minute mark of pressure, like people keep coming at you, they break. And they break at that point, and you just start to like wave after wave kind of comes, and you're like, oh boy, this isn't good. And I said it in the group chat. I said they're scoring for sure here, and then they didn't score, but I think it was 5 minutes later they put in the goal. Like it felt identical to how it felt at Villa. It just, you can feel that shift, and that just people aren't getting to balls, people aren't clearing. There's miscommunications, and of course, against Wolves, we rocked another new formation, a 4-3-3, which we haven't been known to do. And so, we don't have to criticize Frank on his player choice or whatnot because he was there for 2 days. So I don't know how much of the blame he gets. Little for me. I mean, you can't expect him to come in and instill really anything in 2 days. So I don't think he gets a ton of the blame, but the boys didn't seem up for it again. And so it just seems like same shit, different day.
So I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't really want to talk about either game in this pod because the interesting stuff at Chelsea is happening off the pitch, as it has all season at this point. So you mentioned Frank. Let's talk about his appointment first. He was in attendance Tuesday. I guess I did watch the game I guess I do remember watching the game on Tuesday because I saw him in the crowd and I said, oh, he's going to be our interim manager. And then he was. I have never lost on manager appointments. So good for me. So let's talk about that appointment of Frank, because it not only divided the fan base. Normally when things divide the fan base, us as a pod, we stay sort of in the same realm of each other. We were not on this one. So Parker, let's start with you. I know that you have nothing against Frank, but you have questions about the appointment.
Yeah, big time. And I want to be careful of how I say this, because I thought like, there is a realm of how this could have worked, and it could have been all fine for Frank to get appointed as an interim manager, and everything is fine and dandy. What I don't like is what looks like people not knowing how to do things, and people not having plans in place and contingencies in place, and then sort of reacting to fans and media, and then sort of shifting plans, or what seems to be shifting plans. And that's what really drives me crazy, because I don't like my team in the media every second of every day. I don't like all of the talk about who's going to be our next manager, and everyone is linked to Chelsea, and everyone from Jose Mourinho to Carlo Ancelotti to Antonio Conte to every manager we've ever had is linked to a permanent job, along with like the front runners. I don't love all of the media and the hype and the stuff around us. I like when we win and we're quiet and we kind of go off on the side and do our own thing, and people don't want to play against us and whatnot. I like that. So the fact that you sack Potter with no contingency plan, you just get rid of them, and then you've got, we don't talk about Bruno. You've got Bruno, who has never picked a team before, and he's like, I guess I'm the guy. Like I don't know how to do this, and he puts together a team which was fine, but no one really had much ambition, and against Liverpool we just kind of were there, and it was a match, and it felt like a very, very, very Chelsea match. Of we created decent opportunities, we didn't concede a ton of opportunities. It was a 0-0 draw. I think we've now gone 13 or 14 straight halves of football against Liverpool where it's been scoreless, including like halftime overtimes. There have been like 13 or 14 straight, and it's the most stupid, depressing stat ever, because no one likes to score. And we had really epic matches against Liverpool last year, and just kind of befuddles me how no one likes to score against each other in that matchup. And it's two clubs that are top 6 clubs that don't play each other, that aren't playing up to their potential. But so then in response to Bruno not giving a shit, then we go out and look for an interim manager and get Frank to sort of win the fans back or win the fans over. And I just feel like it feels like media cover up stuff. It feels like, don't look here, look over there shit. And that's the stuff that drives me crazy as a fan, is look like you know what you're doing. Look like you have a concise plan. Look like this is thought out, because I tell you what, man, I'd rather have Graham Potter put together a team than Bruno. If it's going to be one or the other, then keep Bruno, and then talk to Frank and then say, hey, we're thinking about getting rid of this guy. Like, are you good to take interim position after that? Then do that. Like, that's what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with Frank coming in for the rest of the year. I don't think Frank has a lot to win. I don't think Frank has a lot to lose. I mean, obviously, if he wins the Champions League, it's big ticket win for him, but I don't think we're anywhere close to being in a position for that. So I think if he has a really bad record, it could hurt his ability to be a manager somewhere. Frank's coming off of a couple of tough appointments, including Chelsea. He got sacked by Chelsea, went to Everton, didn't have a great time at Everton either. So I really have a problem with our club looking like a shit show. I have a really big problem with no one having a damn clue what's going on, and there's reports and then conflicting reports and then conflicting reports, and all of the talk, all of the chatter. I want that shit to go away. I want it to be like, we're done with this, we're going here, and this is what we're going to do. I want the next manager appointment to go smoothly and just be able to put a plan in place. And I think having Bruno be your interim manager for one match, it just like it heightened everyone's like focus on who the next manager is going to be. So then there was all of this like, oh, is someone going to come in today? Is someone going to come in? And Nagelsmann doesn't want to come in this second. So is it going to be him? But is it going to be take over in the summer? And what does that mean for the rest of the, like, there's all these question marks and all of this like crap that kept getting floated around. And so I think Frank calms a lot of that down. I just wish it was a more well thought out plan.
Yeah, and from I can see, at what was that Wednesday when it happened, where it would seem chaotic and it would seem nuts, and having Bruno manage against Liverpool was ridiculous. There's no way around that. If you're gonna appoint Frank anyways, there's no justification for having Bruno in there at all. Because it sounds like from the reports that came out since, and at this point, this is all just awesome office gossip, right? You got to take everything with a grain of salt. But when you see things occur from more than one source, that's when you can probably take something out of it. And one of them was Chelsea higher ups had been in talks with Frank for about 6 weeks. Like, hey, if we do this, like, are you on board? Do you want to come back? Or like, what would be your plan? Just general talks about that, which leads to the question, well, why did it take so long? Let's see, because we sacked Potter on Sunday. Was that correct?
Yeah,
because we potted Sunday.
Yeah.
So sacked him on Sunday. I can see where maybe it's too quick of a turnaround for a Tuesday game to say, like, hey, Frank, like right now, like we got to go. Especially because he had lined up that he was going to be a presenter on BT Sport starting this week. So, he probably had to clear some hurdles there. Not like, I understand it all. It's really no sweat off my back. Like, whatever. Bruno was here. Bruno didn't lose. And then we brought Frank in, but I don't like the idea that people are pissed about Frank coming in to kind of settle everything. Like Matt was making the argument to me during the week that, oh, well, Frank, okay, Matt, I apologize. I shouldn't have called you out just right now when you can't be on here to defend yourself. So I'm going to preface with that. But at the same time, Matt came at me and said, well, Frank took a historic top 6 club, which was utter bullshit, and took them into the relegation zone. He took Chelsea and tanked stuff here, and he's not a good manager, and like that's fine. Everton are kind of a shit club to begin with. Carlo Ancelotti couldn't turn that around. And he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. But at Chelsea, 6 weeks before he was fired, he had the team in first. They won their Champions League group. Like, there was stuff there. Players were progressing. Tomori became something in and of itself under Frank. Mason Mount like hit the ground running under Frank. Tammy Abraham hit the ground running and then faded under Frank. There was development. There was things that we weren't seeing under Potter. And so I don't know. Like I like the idea of uniting what has been a very toxic fan base this year. I like the idea of bringing in someone who knows Chelsea, knows what kind of club we are, knows what we have won in the past, knows how to win, has played through that, has coached through that. Somebody who's willing and able to come in and do that, and not have it be a fucking Potterite, right? Bruno is just bald Potter at the end of the day. We saw the exact same subs, we saw the exact same lineup, saw the exact same tactics as we saw under Potter with Bruno. So if you're going to sack Potter, like, don't have Bruno in there because it's just gonna be the same thing for the rest of the season. Frank at least comes in to attempt to right the ship. Now, Parker, I know that you had mentioned, this could hurt his chances of getting a managerial job going forward. And absolutely. And I think that's one of the great things about this appointment is he took that knowing that. Frank has to know that. But he said in that early presser, like, it was an easy decision. This is my club. And he said it doesn't always come along. You don't always get the chance to manage your club. And now this is his second time doing it. Even if it's only for a couple of months, I think it's a good fit. Do I expect him to work miracles and turn things around and us win the Champions League? No, fuck no, not at all. But at least give a little sense of unity in a club divided. And I'm going to just real quick, just take a shot across the bow of half of Chelsea fans here. To the people who aren't excited, who didn't feel good watching that Frank presser, he was smiling ear to ear. Every time you've seen Frank this week, it's been all smiles. It's been, boyhood club. I'm not boyhood. He first year was at West Ham, but spent the majority of his career here, has managed here. He loves this club so much. And to see the joy there was it was heartwarming for me. And so if you can't respect a club legend coming in for 2 months, just 2 months, and your anger is directed at Frank for this, if you're Frank out and all that, you haven't been a fan long enough of this club. You've been a fan in the last 5 years. You're a glory hunter. Like this is it's vibes. It's vibes the last 2 months. I have no other way to say it than that. It's going to be a special couple months. Enjoy Frank on the touchline while you can, because it's not going to be forever. It's going to be 2 months, and we're going to have somebody else in, and then we can finally breathe and reset.
Yeah, and I'll raise you quick, and because like I wasn't able to, I wanted to kind of save my comments for the pod for how I felt about this, and so I feel like you kind of pegged me as way against this managerial appointment, and there's a lot I see that's good about it, and that I agree with you on. Like I generally agree that he's the right person to kind of caretake the club for the last 2 months. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And I'll raise you in the sense of his presser when he first got there was fantastic, but the presser that he gave after the match was even better, because he wasn't happy. He wasn't ear to ear smiles. He was pissed off, and you can tell he freaking cares. Like, the dude's been there for 2 days. He already takes it personally that they lost. Like, you saw more emotion out of Frank than you saw out of Potter when he lost. And I'm not trying to shit on Potter, but his messaging to the media did not gel with the way I think a manager should message the media. Whether it's the right way or not, I have no clue. But it doesn't resonate well with me. I want a manager who cares when the team loses, who you kind of like look them in the eye and say they're going to go back and either ream people out or fix it. Like, whatever their style is, they're going to make damn sure that the people that are responsible for the loss don't do what they did to help that loss happen. Like, they're going to fix the problems that occurred. And obviously it's kind of hard to fix absolute cracker of a wonder strike. I mean, there's you can argue Cucurella should have closed down quicker, but that's a dicey comparison. Like, it's not the easiest comparison to make. I don't think what's his name, Koulibaly's header, I don't think it was a bad header clearance. I mean, to be honest, I put that goal on our midfield more than anything, because our midfield conceded possession 2 or 3 times in a row, which led to a continued attack, which, to my earlier point, led to the pressure that ended up with the goal. It's constant pressure, and it led to our midfield not being able to win those 50-50 balls. So that's where I want to see fix. That's where I want Frank's sort of leadership to kind of enforce in on people and say, like, hey, that's a ball you got to win here. Or if you don't win it, then you got to bust ass and haul ass back. Like, that's the stuff, the situational stuff that Frank has lived it. Like you said, he's lived it, he's coached it, he's done it, and he knows where people should be in the right spots and the right times. So I don't think we need wholesale changes from like a on the pitch performance. I think we need small tweaks. And we've clearly seen that we are a different beast in Europe. So we'll see, you know, after a little bit more time, I put that in air quotes, after a few more days of time, what Frank can do with the team and a Wednesday night in Madrid.
Do we have any shot of advancing past Madrid?
It would absolutely. So I told you this earlier. I think there is a small shot. There's always a small shot. We are Chelsea. We are a team full of talented players and individuals, and it's a squad. If we do, I will be absolutely flabbergasted. I think we're going to lose by a pretty good margin. I would not be surprised if that margin is 3 goals over the 2 matches, like the aggregate of matches. I think we have a shot to lose by 3+, because Madrid seem like they're firing on all cylinders. They rested half their squad on the weekend in advance of this match, so they're all going to be kind of fresh and ready to play against us. And I just think they're ready and they know what they're doing, versus us that we just can't say that. And so, you know, could we pull a rabbit out of our hat? Absolutely. I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, I hate to say this because it's terrible as a content creator, but I'm just vibing. I don't have a horse in the race at this point. I've always had a soft spot for Karim Benzema. You know, but he came up through Lyon and I got to watch him there. And it's always a treat as a youngster, and to see him still going at the age of 35 and killing it is amazing. I hate that we have to face him now. March alone, 7 goals and an assist in 5 games. And historically, Ramadan has been a hell of a season for Karim Benzema. He usually goes on quite the goal scoring tear. So of course, Chelsea have to face him during that time. But at the same time, you alluded to it earlier. Chelsea is a different beast in Europe. The Dortmund match, we all agreed was some of our better play in that stretch under Potter. You look at the group stage, which seems like 10 years ago now, dominating AC Milan, who are now also in the quarterfinals. Chelsea's a different animal in Europe. I think it'll be a close one. I think the boys, this mentally fragile group, will get up for this one. I see it being a close tie. Might be heartbreak like last year, though. I don't know.
I guess I'm more going to be surprised if we, 2 sides, right? Like if we score more than 2 goals in the both matches together, I'll be surprised. And if we don't give up more than 2 goals, I'll be surprised too. Like both things are true. I think Real Madrid has the ability to score on multiple occasions over the 2 matches, and I don't see us putting the ball in the net. We just have not been consistent at it.
I'm excited for 2. I don't even know if they're matchups. One's a matchup. One's a comparison, I think. But Reece James against Vinny Jr. is always a treat to watch. Those two have some kind of bromance going on social media after they play each other. They're always talking about the other is the best that they've faced in that position. So that is going to be a very fun battle. The other that I really want to watch is Enzo and Luka Modric. I think Enzo has the ability with his passing to eventually become a Luka Modric. I think he's a great passer of the ball now. We've compared him to Cesc Fabregas at times. But Luka Modric just does special things on the pitch. He's one of the, I don't even know, underrated at this point. But he's one of the top players of our generation. If it wasn't for Messi and Ronaldo, Luka Modric would be up there. So just kind of compare and contrast, was it 35-year-old Luka Modric with early 20s Enzo Fernandez is going to be something fun for this pod, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't know why I think this, but I feel like it might be like Mudrik's like first chance to really like get out and run, like play on a wing, play on that left wing and really go out and run. And I'm not sure who Real Madrid's right back is, but might be like Militao or something. I don't remember. Anyway, but Mudrik running in on defenses with Enzo kind of controlling the ball in the middle might be a fun thing to finally kind of get to see. And I don't know why. I just feel like there's gonna be more space, especially being a Spanish team. I think we're gonna have a little bit more time and space than we're used to. So it might give our creatives a half a second more time to make the right decision.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we saw out of Frank this weekend is that he's not afraid to make positive subs. And so, even if it's Sterling, Zhao, and Kai up top, he's not afraid to bring on Aubameyang and Mudryk and Madueke, Pulisic. I think honestly, the last probably 30 minutes of each leg are going to be chaos, especially if we're trailing, searching for a goal, or hell, you know what? Even if Madrid is searching for a goal and we're just booting the ball downfield and say, "Hey, Mudryk, go get it."
Yeah,
it's going to be fun. So, we'll see. We'll see if Luis Enrique changes his mind about our wingers coming up this week.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if we do score the first goal, and like if Real has that press on, and you have the ability to release a Mudryk who's just ready to sprint, like you can just see how that can all work out. I mean, some of our best highlights are like those springing traps and releasing players in the Champions League. I mean, that's a lot of like our history. It's a lot of the key goals that kind of come up on the highlight reel. So who knows? Stranger things have happened, my friend. Stranger things have happened.
All right. So I did mention Enrique there, and it seems like the managerial race has come down to a 2-horse race. There are other names being thrown around. I think, honestly, a lot of agents are leaking names at this point. Antonio Conte, Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti, Marcelo Gallardo was the interesting one out of South America this week. But it really seems down to 2 people, Luis Enrique and Julian Nagelsmann. Enrique, famously former Barcelona and Spanish national team manager. Nagelsmann comes from the Red Bull system before getting sacked at Bayern earlier this week. Enrique has since interviewed. Nagelsmann is on a holiday and plans to meet with Chelsea after that, but isn't thought to be interested in joining until summer. So instead of, just kind of throwing out, hey, Parker, who's your favorite? Let's try to build some pros and cons here. How about that? So let's start with Luis Enrique. He's the one who interviewed this week, submitted a PowerPoint to the club showing what his plan for each individual player in the squad, which, oh man, someone needs to get a copy of that PowerPoint. I would love to see it. But he was first up. Chelsea haven't pulled the trigger yet, but any positives or negatives from you on him?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of furthering the point, I like someone who has a plan. I like someone who has a plan with the squad that we have, and their plan isn't to get rid of half the squad and then have to re-sign half the squad next year. It's a plan that kind of reflects who we have and how he plans to use them. And look, I believe in interviews being like, not like if I'm interviewing for the job, Parker, if it's not like me selling them this pipe dream of what I'm not, it's me telling them who I am, my job, my qualifications speak for themselves, but like, this is what I want to do. And this is what I expect when I get there, because then if I get hired, then they know what my expectations are and they know what my plan is. They know how I plan to address things. They know what my style is. They know who they're getting in that situation. So like, I feel like interviews are people saying what they're going to do and how they're going to deal with certain things. And I think you need to go through an extensive process of like, if you do lose a string of games, how do you plan on addressing our fan base that continues to not have patience around things like losing 3 matches in a row, like, or getting bounced, or you don't have that excuse of having European football anymore. So how do you plan to address them and your players to get ready for that stuff? So having a plan that fits around the team that we have, because I think it's a super talented team that can win and win in a big way. I mean, I don't see anyone outside of Manchester City that looks scary to me in the Premier League. I really don't. Newcastle doesn't scare me. Man United doesn't scare me. Tottenham doesn't scare me. Arsenal doesn't scare me. It's like City. That's the team that scares me consistently. That can go toe to toe with us, and I think our squad can under right management.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the PowerPoint. I think that was specifically leaked. Because yeah, we just went out and spent £500 million on players. And so you want to know, how are these players going to be developed? What is your plan for each of these players? I think another positive of that is that he has managed 2 of probably the most demanding positions, probably in Europe. You look at Barcelona, and just as a bonus to managing the first team there, he also managed the B team for a while and developed a lot of key players from La Masia. So if you're looking for youth development, he's done that. He knows how. But then you turn to Barcelona, he managed the Messi, Suarez, Neymar, the MSN front 3. And you talk about egos, and I don't think that you're going to get too much more out of that unless maybe you add Ronaldo. Excuse me. Unless you manage Ronaldo in there along with it. So he's managed egos. He's managed at a giant club with a giant fan base with a very demanding board. He's done that. He knows how. And then you look at the national team as well, Spanish national team, and following. Oh gosh, who the hell was the manager there? I am embarrassed that I'm blanking on this. Vicente Del Bosque, following his World Cup win in 2010 and having to live under that legacy, live in that shadow, even though it was a couple of years past, is a tough job to follow. And not that he set the world on fire with Spain, but they won, was it the Nations League? I believe the Spanish one most recently. So he's got experience with that. So he's a winner on multiple levels. So I would say his experience is a big positive. Anything what anything else positive, or do you want to go to cons?
Yeah, I don't have a ton else positive to talk about Enrique. So what are people saying? What's like his kind of fatal flaw? I know when you manage those big clubs like Barcelona, sort of expectations sort of usually rise above where they end up coming in at, because football can be volatile. So what are people saying around like the reasons he's gotten sacked, or the reasons that he might not be the right guy at Chelsea?
The reasons I'm seeing is that he kind of has a don't take no shit mentality. So there's was it Gerard Piqué? I believe he left out of the squad for a long stretch with the Spanish national team because it was becoming too much of an issue, which I don't know. I see that as a positive, but I can also see where that would, kind of kill a squad there. Yeah. And I guess the other thing is that he, with it being Barcelona, with it being Messi, that, is it really down to him? Was he the one who orchestrated that, or is he kind of riding the coattails of Messi? Which is a completely fair argument. It's Barcelona. That's just what you got to expect at that point. with that being said, that was also 6-7 years ago. And so, how used to club football is he at this point?
Yeah, it's true. And, Chelsea is such a weird one because we don't have a dominant ego that you play to. We don't have a Kylian Mbappe that sort of dictates everything on and off the pitch. Arguably that person's Mason Mount, and he's sort of fallen out of favor, in the past little bit. So we don't really have that guy, but we do have a team that has a lot of egos, and we have a big squad. And I think, seeing who we keep and sell is going to be really telling. And I'm curious how much of that comes down from ownership versus managerial decision, because if Luis Enrique comes in and cleans house, or Nagelsmann for that matter, comes in and cleans house, it can create an energy in the locker room a little bit. So I'm kind of curious to see how all that plays out. But the other thing I'm curious about is just to see how he plays with the English media. I think that's huge and important, and can be crucial to success of how you spin things, how you work things in, and how you kind of create stability through what you say on a week in and week out message basis to people. The external media in the Premier League is pretty vicious. So I don't know if he's managed in England before. You can tell me that off. I'm not sure if he has, but if he hasn't, then that seems like it's a new beast for him.
Yeah, outside of Spain, the only place that he's managed was Roma back in 2011. Would that have been when we saw Roma in Chicago?
It would have been close. We saw Roma, probably 2012. It was the year before I graduated, which was 13. So
okay, full circle.
I graduated in 13. That's when we saw the US over in Cleveland.
Okay.
That was that much.
Yeah, so that was his only outside of Spain coaching experience. So, there could be, just like we have with these players, the adjustment period, right, of going from La Liga, a more technical league, to a more physical league in the Premier League. But just the one last negative I'm seeing, and it's not so much a coaching issue, but it's his stance on transfers. He wants to be more involved in the picking of transfers, which, as a coach, understandable, especially a coach who has won the Premier League, has won La Liga on a couple of occasions, won the Champions League, won the Club World Cup. He should be allowed, in his head, should be allowed to be involved with transfers. I don't know what the plan is for this manager being involved in transfers, but that seems to be a key point. And then he wants better wingers. And you think about all of the wingers that we've invested in, Mudryk, Sterling, Madueke, and then we've got Pulisic, Ziyech, et cetera, on the bench. It's how much more do you want? Who exactly do you want, I guess, is the question. So there are questions in regards to his stance on transfers. So
All fair.
Yeah. Turning to the other main target here, Julian Nagelsmann, again, recently fired by Bayern. Our boy Tommy T taking over. Your boy Tommy T taking over. There, but Nagelsmann is currently out skiing, from what I understand. He's out on holiday. No interest in taking a job until summer, when a new season starts. Parker, what kind of positives do you see out of Nagelsmann? Because he seems to be the number one.
I mean, I think there's a lot of really glaring positives. I mean, you look at his track record at Bayern. Most people would look at what he did with Bayern and say, how the hell was this guy sacked? I get that Bayern kind of let him go for a couple of reasons. But I think mainly because they wanted Tommy T, would be my guess. They kind of got further along in those negotiations, and they saw that he was their prized possession to sort of go after. And then Nagelsmann just becomes the casualty in that transfer. So he's winning. He's young, he's dynamic, and he's German. I think all super positives. You said dealing with egos and stuff. Bayern's got their own set of egos to deal with. But yeah, he's a guy who scores, and he doesn't. Their teams have scored a lot of goals. They've been relatively resolute. I think they have like a plus 45 goal differential. So definitely scoring a lot more than they're giving up. And he's a young, dynamic, exciting manager that's done it on a big stage. We talked about that last week, right? Where he's not Graham Potter, where Potter did it at Brighton. He kind of had that Potter-ish like upcoming, and then did it at a big stage at Bayern. So, and I've always loved German managers, German leadership, German just sort of way of methodically thinking about things. I'm mostly German, and I do business with Germans, and I feel like I get along best with Germans. My line of thinking just tends to line up a lot more with theirs, which is usually just consistent, hardworking, dedicated, and just that really consistency is the main word that comes through. It's if we do the work and we do it right, then results come.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of the positives that you just mentioned, where he's young, so he's an up and coming coach, but he has more experience than Graham Potter, certainly. Managed at Bayern, which has its own big egos, and he's worked with Christopher Vivell and Lawrence Stanley and that whole think tank before in the Red Bull system. So, maybe you've got a little bit more collaboration there than you possibly would with Luis Enrique, a little bit more corporate synergy. But at the same time, I wonder if those are drawbacks. We've talked about, and the reports have come out about Boli and Igbali being surprised by the vitriol of this fan base and being surprised by this and that. And, remember the response to, oh, what about an all-star game? Like, they're just kind of throwing ideas out there, and it's kind of trial by fire at this point. So is appointing Potter, a young and up and coming manager, going to affect their decision? Are they going to say, you know what, we need to go with the seasoned veteran? Because the reports that have come out this week have been, they thought at the time that they could kind of exploit a market deficiency there, where instead of having the experienced old hand in Thomas Tuchel, who, you kind of butt heads with a little bit, that may bring winning. But if you were to bring in the young and experienced manager, over time, it'll be more cost effective. That blew up in their face. And so do they overcorrect? Do they oversteer on this one and go towards the experienced manager? Nagelsmann and Enrique have about the same amount of club management experience. So really it's going to come down to age, if you're looking at experience, I guess, at that point. I haven't so much turned on Nagelsmann. I just don't have any other positives other than what you had mentioned. He's got a lot. He's got very similar credentials to Enrique's. Managed the big club. He's succeeded at the big club. Took Leipzig to a Champions League quarterfinal where they lost to Jose Mourinho and Spurs. So he's got winning experience. I would say just not as much as Luis Enrique.
Yeah, I think the biggest downside to Nagelsmann is some of the reports that came out of Bayern just about managing egos and managing a locker room. And do I think, if anyone gets a second crack at the apple, do they do it better? Probably. I'm sure he's learned from some of his mistakes that he's made at Bayern, but that's worrisome because we have a big team and dealing with a lot of players, dealing with a lot of people and egos and, people who want playing time and kind of getting your will across them and motivated and all of those things. That's what worries me about him. And experience wise, I understand that they're about, the same on the club level, but like, I trust an older guy to be able to kind of control people better and just kind of manage people better. just been able to do it a little bit longer. And it's a really interesting point about the overcorrect, because I think everyone's sort of natural tendency in life is to overcorrect the other way and end up rubber banding, and then kind of you get into this cycle of overcorrect, undercorrect, things like that. So I don't know what the right answer is, because selfishly I thought Tuchel was the right answer when we had him before, because I thought he was stable and who we kind of needed. I understand that he didn't get along with management, which led to what happened. But if we get into this, like, pissing match of managers don't get along with ownership because they're doing what they think is right, we could be screwed for a while. Like, managers get paid to manage. And I said this last week, Jose Mourinho is going to tell you what he thinks the best lineup is and the best tactics are, because he's Jose Mourinho and he believes in what he does every single week, no matter who he's with or what. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. He's not going to listen to anyone else's opinions. He's going to tell you what he thinks. And I agree more with that, of, sitting down with management and saying, here's your plan. I understand that, but as a manager and as a manager of this big squad of 37 players or however many it is, this is what we need to do. And this is how we're going to line up. And this is what we're going to, how we're going to rotate this lineup. And when we need to rotate, this is what we're going to run. Just those ideas, that consistency around ideas, expectations, things like that. If I'm thinking about it logically, my gut tells me that Enrique would be better at that than Nagelsmann, but Nagelsmann has higher upside.
Yeah, I think Nagelsmann is the number one, because Enrique sounds ready. Like, he's ready to go. And the fact that they didn't appoint him, and they're waiting for Nagelsmann, and they have since gone on to appoint a new interim manager, leads me to believe that they are waiting for Nagelsmann. But at the same time, there's going to be some lucrative jobs opening up this summer. PSG, surely going to be opening up. There's no way Luis Campos keeps his job there. Carlo Ancelotti going to be leaving Real Madrid. And in Europe, no one turns down Real Madrid. Enrique would probably be the one, although he played for both Barca and Real in his playing days, so who knows. But in a young up and coming successful coach who's managed Bayern, Nagelsmann is going to have suitors. And I just hope we don't wait too long, as the U.S. men's national team probably will, on a side note. So, yeah, I guess it's a waiting game now. But I like Enrique. I would say Enrique would be my, out of those two, Enrique would be my number one.
Here's the question: If Chelsea are able to sign either of them for next year, to be announced summer, do you think it's advantageous for them to announce today? Or do you think, like, let's say they lock them up under NDA and say, like, all right, we signed the contract, signed the paperwork, you're starting May 15th or whenever that last game would be. Do you think you just let Frank have vibes for the rest of the year and then announce it, even if you lock it in today? Or do you think you announce it the second it gets live?
I think you wait until the Champions League unknown is known. So you don't want to announce it before the tie is finished, because then it's an issue of, well, why am I listening to you? Like, you're not going to be here. Because as of now, Frank is still in the running, right? If he wins the Champions League, what do you do? But as soon as we're eliminated from the Champions League and the league is already gone, we're not, like, then you're playing meaningless games. Then
We
it
can't
becomes,
win the league, actually. It's statistically impossible for us to win the league.
Right.
By the way.
Yeah, and at this point, we're closer to relegation than we are to the top four. So as long as staying in the league is safe and we're eliminated from the Champions League, then I think you can announce it. Would be my opinion.
Yeah, part of me, like, ideally would like to just, like, lock it in today and have it be under NDA, but then just announce it at the end of the season and just kind of let it all happen and just let Frank have his time at Chelsea and just let him kind of manage the club on an interim basis, because you don't want the questions that happen. You don't want oh, Frank, Nagelsmann just got appointed. How do you feel about that? And have you talked to him yet? And you don't want those crossover questions because Frank doesn't know anything about it. Like he wasn't involved in the discussion, and he's not working with him to transition the club. Like that's not his job. His job is just to like instill shit into players today and help them correct what has been a wrongly, focused ship. So that's why I want it to be like, I want them to get their guy today and then announce it when everything's done and dusted.
And just, I would like them to get it done sooner rather than later. That's why, another reason why I would like Enrique, because that gives them more time to evaluate. Not that these guys, while they're being considered, are not going to watch Chelsea and watch to see how these players are performing. But it just gives that upcoming manager a little bit more time to say, is this guy going to be part of my squad? How can I utilize this player? Do I need to go out and get a keeper, or is Mendy and Kepa going to be able to manage?
Right.
And that's why I wish they would finish the process before the end of the year. But yeah, I get it 100% of letting Frank just vibe the rest of the year. Absolutely. 100%. Let him have his swan song.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little one, and it's not for him. It's for our benefit too. It kind of, it benefits both of us, right? So let it happen.
All right, Parks. Well, let's turn to our polls for the week here. We had just a couple. One of them is kind of irrelevant, and that's, would you take Frank, yes or no? Your opinion doesn't matter. The club made a decision. So let's turn to our man of the match and man to get the fuck out of here polls from the Wolves match. Not even going to talk Liverpool. I don't care about it. Let's start with the man of the match. Parker, I know that you very famously in our group chat said you have nothing, or that you have nothing positive to say about this match. So I gave you just a couple options in our poll, and you can get that as always at Flag Down Pod after every match. Man of the match: Kalidou Koulibaly, Wesley Fofana, Enzo Fernandez, or other.
I voted other, and I commented that there was nothing. Like it's really hard for me to find anything positive about what I watched, and I tend to not be that negative, and that match just left me. And granted that there was about a 20-minute stretch of that match I didn't watch, but Frank was my man of the match.
Yeah, mine was Koulibaly. I thought he had a monster game, especially with Wolves press. He didn't have his usual like laps that he normally has under press, and was, for the most part, very clinical in his defense. Made a couple great tackles, a couple good interceptions. Had probably our most creative pass of the day, just bombing from midfield up to Kai Havertz, who blew the fucking chance, because of course. But yeah, Koulibaly was mine. Wesley Fofana was your winner though at 45%. Other, which pretty much all of the write-in votes were for no one, was in second place with 29%. We've never had that happen before. Enzo and Koulibaly tie for third with 13%. All right. Well, the more entertaining of the two polls, what was the worst part of the match? What was the man of the get the fuck out of here for Chelsea against Wolves? We had this season, we had referee Peter Banks, we had Raheem Sterling, and we had Kai Havertz.
Simple one for me, man. It's this season. It's Groundhog's Day. You should have called it Groundhog's Day for me, but it's this season. It's just the accumulation of what we've witnessed. And like, I've been mad at seasons where we finish, top 3 Champions League semis, like, and we lose to a Wolves. I've been mad at those games, and this is just like everything has gone wrong and we're still losing to Wolves. It's this season.
Can we also, I forgot to add this, and I'm sorry because I know this probably would have been yours. The pronouncing of Gallagher by the commentator, and I know it wasn't NBC's commentator because this was not the game of the week. So it's probably BT's, but Galahad. Terrible. Hated it.
It was like a cross between Lord of the Rings and Sir the Arthur and then the Knights of the Round Table. It's just like Galahad is what I kept hearing, and I don't know. It's not that hard of a name. It's English, and you just get it right. Come on, man.
I was trying to figure
What
out.
else can you say?
I was trying to figure out what accents, like what region of England it was from, and I couldn't. So, yeah, that was almost as bad as TalkSport on the radio this week, calling Mateo Kovacic Matthew Kovacic repeatedly. So I'll go. I went this season. The season's been terrible. It's been going on forever. So that was the winner, 52.5%. Second place was Kai Havertz at 29. Peter Banks at 14. He had a good first half and then a terrible second half. And Raheem Sterling closing it out with 5%.
Kai did, or the ref?
The ref. Absolutely the ref. So yeah, you can always catch our polls, man of the match and man to get the fuck out of here, as well as our random midweek polls. Just follow us on Twitter at FlagDownPod. Parker, before we close it out here, any closing thoughts from you? Oh, nope. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I missed one. We got a question on our man to get the fuck out of here poll. What's the worst part of this season? This will be our nice fun closing thought. Parker, what's the worst part of this season?
The worst part of our season is what I'm feeling right now, which is a lack of hope going forward. The worst part is that we're not losing matches that I believe we should win. We're losing matches because I watched them get outplayed by teams that they shouldn't be getting outplayed by. That's what's driving me crazy. And I think like 2 years ago or a year ago, we were losing to teams, and I was like, how are we losing to these teams? We've got 85% of the possession. We're out shooting them 21-2, and like they get a lucky counter and they find a way to squeeze it. But like we put goalies stand on their heads and we test them and they end up having their best game ever, yada yada yada. That's not this season. This season is we're getting outplayed by teams that aren't better than us but are playing better than us, and they're more organized than us and better coached than us, and we're taking it. So the feeling that I feel right now is the worst part of the season, that I don't know where we go from here. I don't think it's a quick fix. I don't think it's something that we can expect to just happen. It's gonna be some leadership and some coaching, and so leadership from the top, leadership on the pitch, and a quick, a fixing of the ship. Just we need some change in that clubhouse.
I would say mine, man, yours was good, and I don't want to copy yours because yeah, the feeling is bad. This is worse than 2015-16 for me. I think I would go the fact that I bought into propaganda. I still don't. I still feel justified in calling for Potter to be sacked, or not Potter, Tuchel. Jeez, I told you I'm going to make this mistake the rest of the year. Yep. I still feel justified in calling for Tuchel to be sacked. I thought his time was up. I didn't really know who would be a good replacement, and listening to a lot of Chelsea pods, English-based Chelsea pods, we're pushing Graham Potter as the next big thing. All the leaked club, whatever bullshit was all talking about how Potter's this great up and coming manager, and I fell for it. I'm not one who typically buys into English bias, just because it's such a global league, it's a global team. But at the end of the day, this is just like me from Milwaukee cheering for the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, I'm gonna root for, you know, the guys who are around here. Craig Counsell, manager of the Brewers, always going to be a hero here because he's from a suburb of Milwaukee. I bought into the English bias and I got burned by it. Matt will bring it up every damn time for the rest of infinity, that I called for Graham Potter to be hired in place of Thomas Tuchel. I fell for it, and I had to live with that for 6 months. I had to attempt to, in my mind, justify backing him, even though the eye test, he wasn't passing the eye test. So it's going to be a while before I get to the point where I trust a Chelsea manager. And I hate that. But real quick shout out to Ricardo Haves, who says that bringing in awful players in the summer was the worst part. I think that's justified. Kukurea hasn't been great. Koulibaly has been up and down. Raheem Sterling, although our best attacker, has been negative. Aubameyang, we just saw him for the first time in forever. I didn't even recognize him with that haircut. Summer signing was useless. Rod Gotti also says spending the amount we spent in January is what's costing us down the stretch. I don't know if I buy into that, but it certainly didn't help stabilize things. So just shout out to them. We always appreciate any kind of dialogue, any kind of interaction with people who follow us. So again, give us a follow on Flag Down Pod or at Flag Down Pod. Always good to chat with the listeners. So to close that out here, I'm not going to go through the whole shtick. Again, you can follow the pod at Flag Down Pod. You can follow me, Andy McComiskey North. You can follow Parker at DJ Parkour. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review to the Flag Stays Down podcast on Apple, Spotify. Shit, do both of them. We would love you extra. We love you long time. Parker, until next week, my friend.
Till next week, bud. Yeah. Hopefully we have some better news to talk about, but we've got Madrid on Wednesday, so we'll see, man.
Just
be fun to watch. Just vibes all day.